Welcome to today's Explainer, everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here, mostly because we're jumping right into a topic that is, literally, a matter of life and death. We're talking about water. You know, the very substance that guarantees the survival of every single living thing on our planet. But we aren't just talking about water itself today. We're unpacking the invisible, silent threats that are actively contaminating it right under our noses. It's an invisible crisis that touches absolutely all of us. And honestly, by the end of this explainer, you're going to see the water coming out of your tap in a completely different light.
Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to imagine something. Picture a crystal clear river winding its way through a lush green forest, absolutely teeming with fish and wildlife. It's a beautiful, peaceful mental image, right? Well, now flip that to the harsh reality beside it. That exact same river, completely clouded with plastics, toxic chemicals, and floating trash. It is a shocking, heartbreaking contrast. But here's the thing. This isn't just some hypothetical worst-case scenario. This is the staggering reality of water pollution happening all over the globe today.
Section 1. Our precious 1%. Let's really look at the fragility of Earth's water.
And this brilliantly illustrates a massive misconception. We so often think of water as this vast, infinite resource. I mean, our planet is covered in oceans, right? But the reality is that clean, usable water is actually a super rare and highly vulnerable treasure. A massive 99% of the Earth's water is salt water. It's entirely undrinkable for humans. That leaves a tiny, microscopic 1% sliver of fresh water to sustain all of humanity, our agriculture, and our freshwater ecosystems. When you break it down like that, you realize pretty quickly that protecting this 1% isn't just some nice environmental goal. It is an absolute, non-negotiable necessity for our survival.
As the saying goes, if there's magic on this earth, it is contained in water. It really is the driving force of all nature. Just think about it for a second. The human body can actually survive up to several weeks without food, but we can only last a few short days without water. It's our most basic element. And that makes the fact that we're recklessly polluting it all the more tragic.
So, what exactly is happening to our magic? Well, by definition, water pollution happens when harmful, toxic waste, chemicals, or other particles enter water bodies, like our rivers, ponds, seas, and oceans. These pollutants can dissolve, they can lie suspended in the water, or they can get deposited right down on the riverbed, which severely degrades the water quality. And here is the truly scary part. This doesn't just stay on the surface. These pollutants can seep deep down into the groundwater, which might end up traveling right into the plumbing of our own houses as contaminated tap water.
Section 2. The roots of pollution. Where exactly does all this contamination actually come from?
Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is looking at the taxonomy of pollution. Nature does play a tiny role here, volcano eruptions, animal waste, natural algae blooms, and flood residue, but the massive, overwhelming driving force, that's human activity. We're talking industrial waste dumping, catastrophic oil spills, everyday city sewage, garbage just tossed into the ocean, fossil fuel combustion, and the heavy use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. At the end of the day, we are the primary cause of this crisis.
But hey, it's not just big factories and oil conglomerates at fault here. It's personal too. I want you to picture your own driveway, or maybe your street during a really heavy rainstorm. Have you ever wondered where all the soap goes after you wash your car, or where that fertilizer you put on your lawn ends up after it rains? Well, a lot of it eventually washes right down the storm drains and pipelines straight into local waterways. Our everyday, normal actions have a direct pipeline to the rivers and lakes around us.
In fact, there are quite a few hidden ways our actions degrade the water supply before it even gets close to a tap. Cutting down trees, for example. Deforestation actually causes sediments and soil bacteria to contaminate groundwater. Rising global temperatures literally alter water by reducing the oxygen in it. Urban street runoff carries a complete soup of hidden waste, and agricultural pesticides easily filter right through the earth into the underground channels feeding our consumption networks. Everything is totally connected.
Moving to Section 3, Microplastics and Dead Zones. Let's demystify the invisible threats.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because it's honestly a terrifying life cycle. Step 1, a piece of discarded plastic trash flows into the ocean. Step 2, over time, it doesn't just magically disappear, it breaks down into tiny invisible particles we call microplastics. Step 3, these microscopic fragments get consumed by sea creatures, and because water travels everywhere, these particles find their way not just into marine life, but literally into the water we drink. That piece of plastic we threw away can quite literally end up right back in our drinking glass.
Another invisible threat comes from excess nutrients.
We're talking primarily about phosphates and nitrates found in fertilizers and sewage. They cause this phenomenon called eutrophication. Now, I know nutrients sounds like a good thing, but when they overpopulate a water body, they cause massive algae blooms. This algae completely chokes off the oxygen in the water, suffocating fish and marine life. The end result? Massive, suffocating oceanic dead zones where absolutely no life can survive.
And we absolutely can't forget the heavy metals. Industrial chemicals like mercury, lead, and powerful pesticides are invisible, sure, but they are incredibly deadly. And they don't just damage ecosystems, they travel right up the food chain. When fish are poisoned by these heavy metals, the people who rely on catching and eating those fish for their survival end up tragically poisoned right along with them. Section 4. The Global Ripple Effect. Let's talk about the devastating consequences for life on Earth.
Okay, so we've zoomed in on the microscopic pollutants. Now let's zoom out. The consequences are profound and, frankly, pretty grim. We are looking at the complete collapse of aquatic ecosystems. We're constantly seeing dead fish, crabs, birds, and dolphins washing up on beaches, killed off by pollutants in their habitats. This causes a massive loss of biological diversity. But it impacts humans just as severely. In a lot of poorer nations, there are constant outbreaks of fatal diseases, things like cholera, hepatitis, and other severe infections, all triggered simply by drinking or using contaminated water.
2 billion. To put that into perspective, today over 2 billion people live without reliable access to safe drinking water. That is literally a quarter of the entire global population. For millions and millions of people, water pollution isn't some distant future problem to worry about later. It is a daily, life-threatening reality right now. And because of that lack of access, we arrive at this next staggering statistic. Between 5 and 10 million people die each and every year from illnesses related to water pollution. Up to 10 million lives lost annually, simply because the one basic element needed to sustain life has been poisoned.
Section 5. Turning the tide. Time for some empowering actions to actually save our water.
I know those previous numbers are incredibly heavy, but listen, I don't want you leaving this explainer feeling totally defeated. Water pollution is not an unstoppable force. We can actually change this. On a macro level, we absolutely need industrial and societal changes. We've got to drastically reduce our reliance on single-use plastics. Industries and communities have to properly dispose of hazardous waste. Factories need to be mandated to install much better filtration systems to stop heavy metals from leaking. And as everyday citizens, we can support and vote for policies that fiercely protect our clean local waterways.
So the crucial point is, you don't have to wait for some giant factory to change its policies to make a difference today. You can start by just valuing the fresh water we have. Take shorter showers. Make sure to turn off the running tap when you brush your teeth. Check your house occasionally for pipe leaks. And most importantly, when you are out enjoying nature at a beach, lake, or river, always, and I mean always, pick up your trash. These are highly actionable personal steps that stop waste and runoff from entering the system in the first place.
Remember, our planet might be covered in oceans, but it is a real tragic irony that fresh, clean water is fast becoming one of our absolute scarcest resources. Every single small step matters. Spread awareness. Talk about these effects with your friends and family. Because honestly, the more people who understand how their driveway runoff or their plastic usage affects the global water supply, the faster we can turn the tide on this whole thing.
Which leaves us with one final thought. The magic of the Earth really is contained in its water. Without clean water, life as we know it simply cannot exist. We know the causes, we've seen the devastating effects, and we have the solutions right in front of us. The only question left hanging in the air is this: what will we do to protect it? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Start making those small changes today, and I'll catch you next time.